Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another backtesting episode. So just a quick sort of catch up. So last week's backtesting session, as far as I'm concerned, was was disappointing. But again, it's one of those things that I always say that um, you either win or you learn. You never lose. And I think that this past week of price action that we've saw, I've learned one thing that I've taken away, which I think is massively important, is that I take the time and the trouble to identify these models, these ideas, or game plans, if you will. And I think it's important that if this game plan forms, you execute. You don't think twice about it. That's why you've taken the time to identify key price areas and levels with logic. And one of the key things that we probably saw if you've watched this week's episodes is that I've missed probably two gilt edge trades whereby I should have executed, and those trades is the best part of 7,000 essential dollars. And that's a lot of money when you're building an account and so on, and it's important to not pass up opportunities that the market presents. And I think one of the things to take away is this view that when you hesitate, it's because you're concentrating on your P&L rather than probabilities or your process. And although I don't necessarily feel I concentrate on the P&L, I do think that there's an element where I'm not embracing probabilities as much as I should do. And again, if I've taken the time to really enact and position myself in the market or create an idea that is based on sound logic, then there is absolutely no reason to fear engaging. And what's the worst that happens? You take a loss. Okay, we either we it's a price paid for further insight. Then we go again. So that's one of the things that I've taken away. It's one of the things I'm going to look to employ, become extremely more active. I don't want to go through weeks now of backtesting with no trade. So one of the key things is going to be engaging the market, having at least one solid trade per calendar week. So let's see how that goes. But for now, we've completed this week, so let's clear the charts. Now, ultimately, this does prove to be a longer week or a longer episode because of the analysis that's required. So we're going to start off at the weekly. Okay. Let's get ourselves situated. Okay, so almost immediately, something for us to bear in mind is how ES appears to be trading down towards the lows of this BISI here, which again, if there's a liquidity pool, typically based on the time frame that you're on, then could um, that could potentially see lower prices. But let's get some of these key PD arrays in play. Let me mute my laptop. Okay. Sorry, this laptop of mine. Jesus. Okay, right, we're back. So I want, again, the aligned, more so for targeting. obviously we've got this low here, which I'm not going to mark up just yet. So I want that in place. I want to drop down to the daily. Let's have a look and see what we've got from a daily standpoint. So we've clearly got so if we well, actually, let's just go back to the hourly and what's that? Okay. All right, so we know Friday, so that was obviously Tuesday. So sorry, this is okay. Excuse me. And we've got, I think that's Thursday. Yeah, we're on this level. Okay. I'm just going to copy this across. Not convinced. Okay, so I think this is lower. Yep, so we can get rid of that. That obviously is there, and it's Tuesday again. Thursday there. Okay. All right. Okay. Now we don't have this overlap in CPI. So what that potentially would indicate to me, I am going to mark it up now. You know, typically I do mark aligned. However, if that gets traded too, we could see ES trade to the highs. So, excuse me. And that's not confirmed yet. Okay. That is fine. Right, so nothing more on the daily that I can foresee. In fact, actually, from downside objectives, let's just get the range, see where we are. Not quite at EQ. Okay. So this CB here, and in fact I'm just going to mark that up, I think. Okay, so we want that. Now, I'm not looking to overload the market, but this is just purely. In fact, no. Okay, no, I will keep it for now. Okay, so we're slowly starting to get things in place. Okay. Right, so sorry, hang on, that's Monday. Okay, so one. Okay, right, now let's go back out to the daily because it may have changed. Okay, so we have now this high here. I think that's probably Friday, yeah. Sorry, actually, when did traded through and closed? Yeah, so that can come out. So obviously the previous weekly high is a stronger liquidity pool than the old high daily. Just for reference. Okay. Right, so I want to start with okay. Right, there we go. Now we just want to see there's a high there. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, that is nothing. And we've got the H4 liquidity pool. Okay. Okay. So we have those in play. Looking at that H4 CB. Okay, so we're slowly now starting to build a bit of a picture. Not looking at that yet as a swing low. Ouch. Right, so I think just want to make sure that we've covered most aspects. So this odd high daily, yeah, that's important. So we're on Tuesday. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Yep. So I'm happy enough with this. Well, there's no higher time frame framework yet, so right. So let's start some analysis. So bearing in mind we have CPI. I think it's the 12th, right? Yep. So IOF. Let's again go out to. So both relative to the weekly and daily time frame, this has shifted bearish following the violation of the BC weekly / BC daily. Okay. Just bear with me a second. Sorry about that. Okay. Bit of coffee. Right, so the move lower was supported by an high time frame cracking correlation at the highs. Right, I'm just going to drop down to okay. And So now we've got old highs being manipulated. Whilst old lows are being displaced through, supporting lower prices. Okay, so we're establishing institutional order flow. ERL, IRL. So if we go back, let's have a look at what we so is it clear? I think it's more clear on the weekly. Took out this high. Rejection. So following the market purging the old high weekly and rejecting, it has since traded down into the BC weekly. So my immediate attention will be to determine whether the market trades to and through or rejects. Either will be confirmed by a high time frame Kraken correlation. Okay, so I'm essentially saying here on the weekly, we'll either get a Kraken correlation at the lows here, market's going to return higher, target this high, or we're going to get a Kraken correlation somewhere in here and the market's going to continue lower and target this low. So either which way, yes, is it two-sided? What do I believe is likely to happen? Well, if institutional order flow is bullish, which there's no reason why it wouldn't be, my gut feel is that we'll see a Kraken correlation at the lows and the market to continue higher. That's what I think will happen. But if we're looking at the overall picture of this, it's a real interesting, because we obviously had this high time frame displacement, leaving the fair value gap, but it's going to be key to see how far they trade inside of that BC. Okay. Bit of coffee. And if we're looking at the daily, again, we could see the market tap into this BC daily and reject from here and then continue higher. So, you know, all these scenarios are plausible. So SP so SP, I'm just going to drop down to, so if we're looking at Monday's price action, we haven't got any clear, so I have not noted any clear and clean swing points referencing near term, previous day's high and previous day's low. This could support a continuation in the direction of the current trend, but does represent low probability conditions. Okay, so that's important to note. That's really important to note right now. So we've just got to remain patient with that. If we look at the TOs, currently all members are trading at or around their respective true week opens. So again, currently this represents low probability conditions. Okay. Okay, so now on Kraken correlation, and I have not noted. Well, in fact, let's sample through first before we sort of commit our cards on that. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything obvious on the weekly. Not that I look for a Kraken correlation on the weekly anyway, but we certainly saw, I think it was here. So if we remind ourselves, we had this Kraken correlation here. God, what am I doing? Okay, so, and I just want to gain, which was essentially that there. Okay, and that set the trend for these lower prices, right? Set the trend for the lower prices. But we haven't had anything since. So I've not noted any near-term high time frame Kraken correlation to support a high probability trade idea. I will need to see in fact, we don't need that end of the sentence. It's quite obvious. We need to see a new one before we sort of commit to anything. So we're down now to the game plan stage, and again, it's really low probability conditions. So without a high time frame Kraken correlation, which I don't expect to see one, it's looking, in my opinion, rather unlikely. The only potential I want to almost say the only sort of potential move let's see. So where we are currently, Now, my preference for SMT at PDAs is always either the low or the high. When we get into sort of higher in, I think that the the strength of that potential trade idea diminishes massively. I think then you need a sort of swing liquidity pool um, before you're likely to see a trade. So, I mean, currently with NQ, there is a potential for something here. Sorry, with YM. Um, Ideally, would want to see this Kraken correlation between ES and NQ. That often provides a stronger trade idea. So yeah, for me, just jump down to the daily. Yeah, we'll need to see how the market forms. I don't have a game plan right now. There is nothing, as far as I'm concerned, which is percolating at all. There's nothing that sort of fits the criteria as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, there's nothing. Okay. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything. I think if the market were to trade to that H4 liquidity pool, possibly. I mean, personally, I would prefer a purge at the old high daily. I'm not really looking at anything at the lows, just because the other asset classes have not formed something equally as strong. Yeah, so I'm not. There is a chance that, as I said, we could see support from the CB. That is plausible. But again, it would need to. It could potentially be PDA. So if we just but I'm not really looking at this and thinking to myself, wow, this is a no, no, no. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Excuse me. So obviously, as I said, we have this level here. We'll just stretch that out just a little bit longer. But I think the market, like I said, is in low probability conditions. So I'm not remotely currently trying to engage in a trade. It makes absolutely no sense to do so. This level, as I said, could present something, but you know, I don't particularly like it, but we'll see. Especially because of how NQ is traded to it. But let's go to the H1. As I said, this low here would not formulate a trade idea for me. There needs to be a high time frame liquidity pool for me to even remotely be invested in taking a trade, and there isn't one right now. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna put as a potential, a possible. So if the market trades up into the CBH4 and forms an high time frame cracking correlation, either PDA SMT or high time frame SMT, this could set the stage for lower prices if confirmed by the low time frame confluences. And that's all that I'd look for. I'm not looking for anything else. I don't think that there's anything sort of warranted unless we get support lower. Let's just say we get symmetrical price action, drives lower, forms an hourly displacement. That might be. I'll put that in as number 2 just. Okay, so if we see symmetrical PA from the CB H4 and the market displaces lower, leaving an H1 imbalance, if coupled with a low time frame cracking correlation, could support lower prices. Okay, and that would have to involve potential. Well, it would need SMT in there. Okay, so yeah, there's nothing. So that's London lows, Asia high, which is there. we've got Asia high, which has formed the low of the imbalance. Okay, so I'm going to drop down to the 15. As I said, we've got CPI, so this is going to be pretty volatile. And we've also got equities open, which is equally going to be volatile. So I'm going to fast forward now to 8:15. Okay, and then we're going to drop this to 1 minute, and then we're going to continue forward. Okay, so one of the trade ideas is off the table now that all markets have purged that specific price level. So in terms of seeing lower prices, it looks less likely. Hourly clearly looking to trade above that H4 imbalance. Yes, there's a liquidity pool here, but I'm not looking at that. Like I said, NQ is looking pretty bullish, but the initial trade idea is off the table. Okay, so put this in. Small imbalance there. Very small. So prior to CPI, on the high time frame, do we see anything that, yes, it formed this sort of SMT, if you will. But no, it doesn't have anything that I would look at and think, oh, that's a good trade. So let's okay. So not mad about this. Not bad about that, but there is no, as I said, no high time frame cracking correlation or anything of that nature. So we're going to continue to play this out. There's nothing on here that I'm looking at until we get to that high. If the market gets to that high, that would present something entirely different. But if we're looking at the H1 time frame, we have BPR here. Obviously, inversion fair value gap. Just going to mark up this BPR as well. So the reality is that price, if bullish, should not want to return down to that BPR. Okay, and then obviously we've got the imbalance itself. So it is looking rather bullish, but there's no, as I said, there's no trade idea there. So we're going to continue with higher prices potentially, but let's go. And we've obviously got the volatility from equities open as well. Okay, so getting up to 9 o'clock candle. Price continues to reprice higher. Want to go and check the hourly chart. Okay. Obvious that we're going here. Okay, so let's continue. I'm not seeing anything yet in the market. Sorry, let's drop down to the... I mean, to be fair, we don't need the M15 per se. But no, we'll stick with the M15 actually. So equities open, we're getting closer to that. Just want to drop down. Again, it needs to have a higher time framework before I even entertain any form of trade idea, and I'm not seeing that right now, so we're just going to continue. Maybe a PM session trade will present, but the AM session is not really giving me what I wanted to see. Obviously, all members. Let's have a look. Yeah, so still nothing. So we're just going to play this on, see what what the market is looking to do. Does certainly look like NQ wants to reprice higher. So if you were going to try and get in on NQ, can't probably miss your chance. Okay, I think NQ wants to push higher, so we're into that 10 o'clock hour. Jump out to the 4 hour, see what we've got. We do have this 4 hour low here that we can mark up, but again, okay. And important to note now, I'm going to take out this hourly because we do have H4. But again, it's not framed. Get rid of that. Okay, so that H4 BPR in, and that's an inversion there. So we'll leave it at that for now. Drop down to the hourly. I'm going to remove that. Not necessary. So yeah, there we are. 13 minutes past, so we'll continue. To see lower prices, I'd need to see a cracking correlation at that H4. Something's going to have to give. If the market just reprices lower, that's not going to interest me in the slightest. We'll get into the 11 o'clock hour. I'm not anticipating a trade during the New York AM session. We obviously have PPI tomorrow and then core retail sales on Thursday. So we've got some pretty good high impact news drivers. Okay, so we're pretty much at, let's just play this on. We're going to play it onto the end of the trade execution window. It's not looking likely. Okay, I'm going to step this up to 5 minutes. It's not looking likely that it's doing anything. Obviously, we've got this 15-minute BISI here. We've also got, hold on. So there is SMT with, we'll have a look. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I don't particularly like this, but let's just have, we're going to evaluate it nonetheless. Oh. PC's running a little bit slow, which is annoying. As much as this, it's not, you know, the H4 framework has to be established by a high time frame cracking correlation at the lows. Now, although we've seen this, again, ideally, it's what we want. But if we were going to evaluate this, so we've got here, we have on both ES and NQ and 15. Let's just mark this. Now, excuse me. Um, sorry. Just check in. So one of the things you'd want to see is that one. Certainly that one. You want to see the market trade above. Okay, now because there's no M15 liquidity purge, naturally want to see a M15 OB form as opposed to the traditional M5 in here. And obviously that being the divergence. So let's see what the M15 candle presents. Okay, and as you can see on NQ, it's not presenting. Well, certainly NQ yet hasn't presented a trade, but funnily enough, interestingly, the Dow is. Sorry, apologies, squeaky chair. So I would encourage continuation, and in actual fact, probably look at the M5 as well, which appears to okay, so if we're looking at the M5, would now say, okay, we've got that. There. And if we're looking at this divergence pair here, like so. So now we've got the M50. Oh,
can you say it again?
Alexa, stop. Apologies for that. So we'll continue on for the M15 candle to close. Now this is looking extremely bullish. Highly unlikely to present an opportunity to get in now. I do think that the ship has sailed. We do have an M15, so we can stretch that out. Okay. And it's very much likely looking at higher prices. Let's oh Lord. Alexa, stop. Apologies. So we'll get into that 12 o'clock hour. So I wouldn't be taking a trade certainly at this time. So NQ has tapped that level. Again, as I said, we're approaching the lunch hour. So NQ's tapped there. So the question now would be, and also as well, you've got to bear in mind, NQ didn't close above here, much like ES did. So does that mean NQ is going back down to run liquidity again? I highly doubt it. I think the order block should potentially hold, but something to note. So we're going to put this onto the M15. I wouldn't be taking a trade now at this coming into the lunch hour, but you know. There you go. There you go. NQ finding did not want to close above there. Was a telltale sign. Get rid of all of this, and folks, that will bring this session to an end. So a bit of a what they say in football, score draw or board draw, should I say. Yeah, nothing really happening here. There was no high time frame framework, so there was no trade for me during this session. As I said, moving forward, I am going to aim to be far more aggressive in approaching trade setups and so on. But again, it has to be backed by that high time frame framework and narrative. You know, with the basis or the foundation from a high time frame crack and correlation. That hasn't happened yet. We haven't seen anything from a high time frame standpoint. So for me, there's no trade idea. I think the only trade idea was if we found support at the CB to see lower prices. We didn't, so the likelihood is we're going to see higher prices, but we need to see a crack and correlation before we can get that. So on that note, I'm going to leave this one here. Hopefully you took something away from this session. Keep tuning in. Again, if you're enjoying it, please subscribe to the channel, and please like the video. Your support is richly appreciated. So leaving this one here. Catch you guys in the next one.